With this exhibit, we hope to understand the appetite in Bozeman for contemporary art. We hope that there's great interest in the show. Lots of people come out and see it, and that will inspire future exhibitions, future transformation of spaces, future permanent installations throughout the community.
It's a welded steel, larger than life-size horse made out of a burned and bulldozed loading dock from Billings, Montana. Horses have been my main subject for 40 years. I use it as a metaphorical substitute for myself. It's like I paint on this rectangular canvas that's suspended on 4 legs, and then once I've kind of stuffed this canvas, the body of the horse, full of the composition of whatever material I'm using, then I add the neck and the head as it informs me kind of who the piece is, and all of a sudden it's personified and becomes figurative work. I just enjoy matter.
They're images from events that took place during the exploration of the Western Hemisphere and exploration to the Southern Hemisphere from the Spanish and the various governments from around the world who were all trying to catch the gold. And I thought that was an interesting subject because it turned out to be so brutal. The more I thought about it, of course, the older I got, the more I realized what a savage society we were part of. So I made something that sort of illustrates that. I felt, kind of compelled to deal with that savagery.
In Praise of Shadows consists of 2 large candles. I've been working with Yamitos Candles, which is a candle maker outside of Boston, for the past year. We've been prototyping whether it's possible to create really large candles where everything is proportional. And so these 2 candles are the first that we've poured of this scale. Each is around 500 pounds. And the wick that's designed for them burns so that that the candle should go down proportionally over time in the same way that a pillar candle in your house would. The idea for In Praise of Shadows came out of a trip that I took recently visiting different cathedrals throughout Europe. One of the things that took me by surprise is that many of the candles in these cathedrals were of a very similar size, and it made me think, why hasn't anybody ever created a really large candle? For me, feels like it's correcting a historical omission, that this is something that should have existed throughout history and hasn't, so we're trying to, in a weird way, make up for that.
If I were to describe it physically, I would just say I and a half dozen other people drilled 10,000 holes into the roof of an abandoned warehouse. But if I were to tell you maybe what it means to me or why I did it, I'd say that I was inspired by medieval cathedrals that had pinholes installed into their roofs so that Renaissance mathematicians and astronomers could figure out how long the year actually was. For me, it becomes this beautiful way of seeing the passage of time. It's really allowed me to explore what it means to be immersed in an environment that's marked by the sun, what it means to be immersed in an environment that speaks to you about time at every point. And I'm still working through just exactly what it's like to be in there and what it means for me. It's kind of exciting.
For the last few years, the Warren Miller Performing Arts Center has been partnering with The Crossing, which is a 2-time Grammy-winning choir out of Philadelphia, entirely dedicated to new music. We're really, really excited to be performing an evening-length work. It's a piece called The Arc in the Sky by a composer named Kyle Smith. And we have been developing a show that works in partnership with Chris Fraser's installation here at Tinworks. Traditionally, we see choirs performing in traditional institutions like schools and churches and performing arts centers. With a group like The Crossing, they have really branded themselves as thinking beyond the typical box of what a choir should be singing, and also where they should be singing and how they should be singing. So to see 24 people from a Grammy-winning organization moving outside of the traditional concert hall into this kind of alternative location, to say the least, is really, really exciting.
We put out a bulletin as far and wide as we could in the neighborhood, delivered postcards, we've been knocking on some doors, doing emails, asking people to take photos. We asked people to submit a photo and a couple sentences describing that photo, and they would be on display in this community art exhibit in this building that is a landmark in the Northeast and is scheduled for demolition, which is something I think is also important, that the neighbors will have an opportunity to grieve the loss of something that's been around for a long time. And while we welcome change in the neighborhood, change is hard, and people need to grieve that and talk about it and share with each other and be ready to welcome the new.
I wanted to volunteer for a variety of reasons, but I was mostly just curious about what you guys were doing with this space. It's a very unique space, like tucked away in the neighborhood, and I'm a loyal North Sider, so I love this community and especially this area, this little pocket. So it's really cool to see like a dedicated space to art and a variety of art too.